Today I am in a very good mood because I finally own a poor man's AE86. And it's every bit as slow as I expected it to be. So what you see here is a completely stock AE71 Corolla. I can almost say that it's a granny spec Corolla because I'm the third owner, but the second owner, who bought it off a 75-year-old lady, only owned it for about a week before he realised he didn't have enough money to modify one of these bad boys. So that little old lady bought this car from Queanbeyan Toyota, brand new in 1984, when she was 39 years old, and she owned it right up until she was 75 years old and they took her license away. In her ownership, the car has had 2 engine rebuilds, has 500,000 kilometres on it, as she used to commute from Sydney to Taree, which is quite the journey, but it's in remarkably good condition. It's clean enough to be a perfect base, but not so clean that I feel bad that I'm gonna modify it and potentially crash it a little bit, trying to drift it. So to rewind a little bit, I've been looking for one of these Corollas for about 6 months or so now, but like every other Japanese car, they've gone up in value a lot. So I ended up picking up this one for $3,500, which for a manual AE71 these days seems like a pretty fair price, I think. I was originally looking for one that had been already 4A swapped, but as they're about $10,000, I wasn't quite sure if I could justify spending that much money or if I'd even enjoy a Corolla, so buying a stock one seems like the way to go. As an AE71 though, this has a 4AC and a T50 gearbox, which means putting a 4AG in it will be quite easy and it won't require any engineering or anything to be legal. The reason I've really wanted a Corolla is because I wanted to experience an AE86, but with the prices that they are, I don't think I'll ever be able to get one, so this was the next best thing. Obviously the chassis is almost identical to an AE86, and if you do a 4AG swap you've got the same engine too. So one of my goals with this car is to make it quite close to an AE86. I'll be making sure that the suspension is like an AE86. I'll be putting a T-Series diff in it, even though that'll probably cost more than the car. I might even do a few other little bits and pieces to try to make it a bit more of a fake poor man's AE86. But we'll get to that in later videos. One of my big inspirations for getting a Corolla was a guy on YouTube called STP Creator. And basically he learnt to drift in a fairly stock AE86 in Japan, and he is a very good driver. Says that learning to drive in an AE86 makes you a better driver, and I agree, so that's why I want to get one, to try to improve my fundamental drifting skills. This is actually the first ever non-turbo car I've bought, also the first ever non-Nissan, so it's going to be a learning experience. I don't know too much about these cars either, so when I was looking it over before I bought it, I didn't really know what I was looking at that much. I just kind of took it that it was a stock Corolla and I couldn't see much rust, so figured I'd buy it. Another YouTube channel that inspired me to get one of these is these guys here, Go Time. It's two guys, Dylan and Matt, that have a pair of K70s, and they're modifying them the way that I sort of like. So basically they're using quality parts, they're clean cars. Dylan's going to drift his. I'm not sure if Matt is or not, but yeah, if you like this Corolla stuff, definitely worth checking them out. So a bit more about this car. As I said, it's got 500,000 kilometers on it. It's had at least one engine rebuild and allegedly two. Pretty much a full service history. It seems to have been really well looked after. I think it's spent most of its time inside because it hasn't suffered too much rust or sun damage or anything. It does have a bit of a misfire around 3,000 RPM, which I presume must be related to the distributor since it's always around 3,000. But apart from that, it runs really well. Sometimes when you're idling, it randomly turns off as well, but it always starts up again straight away, so that's a bit of a non-issue. I don't think I'll be doing any engine mods to this, but I have heard that an AE72 electric distributor is a good little upgrade, so I might put one of those on and see if it actually makes it run a little bit nicer. First things first though, I need to get this car registered in Canberra. So I'll do any maintenance required to pass the roadworthy first. Then I'm going to put a smaller steering wheel on it because I'm not enjoying this giant bus steering wheel. And then after that I'll be trying to find some AE86 coilover suspension to put in the front of it. It's interesting how much of like a jigsaw puzzle it is putting coilovers in the front of one of these cars. Since before I've only owned Silvias and Skylines, you can just buy coilovers and put them in. But for this car, you need to collect all the 8/6 bits to convert the front end, and they're really hard to find from what I've seen, and naturally very expensive because they've got AE86 in the name. But it's kind of fun hunting down all the little parts anyway, so I don't mind too much. Very keen to get it lowered down on a set of nicer wheels though than the stockies that are on it. Anyway, that's about it for the video. If you're interested in following this little Corolla build, make sure you subscribe. I'm going to try to document the whole build because I think it'll be fun to look back on one day, so make sure to like and subscribe. And apart from that, I'll see you next time.